You've heard the spin, now hear the truth. Welcome to Lost on Web.
Before we start, if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. When the system no longer functions, what happens then? Hi everyone. Here in today's video, we're going to talk about something that no one really wants to discuss. Something that the media refuses to show you. What happens when the welfare state collapses? Let's find out. So let's just get right into it. These were dark times for America. Americans who had never gone hungry suddenly couldn't afford food. People who had always worked found themselves without a single job offer. For millions, life as they knew it vanished overnight. You hire someone, half of what they earn goes to government. Opportunity or handouts? When kids believe they deserve free stuff, where does that leave the American dream? Dead. In the welfare state, there is no room for dreams. What you have is what you can carry with you. Why? Because the more people who depend on the state, the more power the politicians have. Now here's where it gets really interesting. But let me ask you this. Why did Sweden break away from the European Union? Why did they put up trade barriers, even against their fellow Europeans? Why? Because they realized that the politicians in Brussels weren't looking out for Sweden's best interests. They were looking out for the interests of everyone else in the EU, not Sweden. Look at parts of Europe, Greece, Spain, Portugal. You know the one economists have been warning about for years? One triggered by years of reckless spending? One triggered by years of deficit spending? Who do you think pays the bills? Who do you think picks up the tab? Remember, nothing's free. Someone pays. When the piper comes demanding payment, what happens then? The Great Depression, the Dust Bowl, World War II. These were dark times for America. What happens then, ladies and gentlemen? What happens then? Nobody knows. But it won't be pretty. It's the land of hope, the land of opportunity, the land of promise. Somehow, we've lost our way. We've traded freedom for dependency, opportunity for entitlement. But it doesn't have to be this way. We can turn things around. We can rebuild the American dream. It won't be easy. It'll take time. It'll take sacrifice. It'll take commitment. But it can be done. And we must do it for ourselves, for our families, and for our future. Look at the United States. Our national debt just hit a record $32 trillion. Soon, it'll be 40, 50 trillion. What happens then? The party stops. Suddenly, you're not so generous anymore. Then you demand repayment. You demand austerity measures. You demand sacrifices. You say things like, "We can't continue this nonsense." Then you impose limits on welfare, right? Wrong. That's not what happens. Instead, what happens is this. You raise taxes. You devalue the currency. The stock market crashes. Your industries collapse. Then what? You borrow more money to prop everything up? It's a vicious cycle. And that's what happens when you tie your economy to other countries. And that's what the proponents of a bigger, more powerful federal government don't seem to understand. The politicians aren't looking out for your best interests. They're looking out for their own interests. Not only do they get more power, but they also get more money. After all, it's not endless. Someone has to pay for it, whether it's through taxes or borrowing. Who pays the piper? Who foots the bill? The answer is, we all do. But what happens when the piper demands payment? What happens when the bill comes due? No one talks about that. No one ever asks that question. But I will. Think about it. So the more people on welfare, the more money the politicians get to spend. And where does that money come from? Well, mostly it comes from taxpayers. It's a system designed to keep people locked in. Independence doesn't pay. It actually hurts politicians. Your talents, your drive, your faith, and each other. Oh wait, sorry, I forgot. You also have your iPad, courtesy of the government. Of course. Thanks to welfare, small businesses have been crushed. By taxes, it's a vicious cycle. Fewer jobs means fewer workers paying taxes, meaning the government must borrow even more money to fund the welfare state. And that means higher interest payments and higher inflation. It was a wake-up call. Government leaders vowed to do whatever it took to help their citizens. They created new programs to ensure nobody would go hungry or be without a home. Safety nets to catch the weak. It all started with good intentions. So how do we fix it? Well, here's the thing. The people who benefit from dependency, politicians, don't want you to. We're living in a world where the powerful want you to remain weak, where politicians profit from keeping you on the dole. Take a moment to look around you. Food banks with overflowing shelves, families lining up for freebies, kids raised on free stuff. Ask yourself, does this look like a coincidence? Does it look like a mistake? Of course not. It's done on purpose. Why? Because here's what dependency buys them: votes. The more people who depend on the state, the more votes these politicians get. The more people who depend on the state, the more power these politicians have. It's ending with broken systems, broken families, and a broken future. The Great Depression, the Dust Bowl, World War II. Imagine you're running a race. You have a goal to reach. If you know there's a helicopter waiting to drop you off halfway through, why bother running to wait for the chopper? That's what many people on welfare do. They wait. They rely on the government to pick them up when things get too tough. Because why work hard when help is just around the corner? The result? A massive tax hike for those still running, including those who once helped. A crushing burden. Let's take a look back at the beginning. Back to when the modern welfare state was born. This is what it was supposed to be: food stamps, medical aid, housing help, little assistance to those who really needed it. Temporary support to lift people up until they could get back on their feet. But look at what it's become. People lined up for days outside welfare offices. Handouts that have replaced opportunity. Free money? Nothing's free. The welfare state runs on taxes, debt, and broken incentives. It starts with good intentions. It ends with broken families. Here's how incentives work. Small business. Try opening a company today. Half your profits go to government. The worst part, this mentality gets passed down. Kids see their parents relying on the state. What do they expect? The truth is, most people don't want to live like this, but they've been set up to fail. Now, I know this might come as a surprise to some of you, but here's the reality. See, it's in the politicians' best interest to keep you dependent on the state. Take Sweden, for example. It's often held up as a model of the welfare state. So let me ask you this. What happens when the welfare state falls apart? Look at Venezuela. It's once rich, now begging on the streets of Colombia. If you think the Great Recession was bad, just wait until the real recession hits. So remember, the next time someone tells you, don't worry, the government will take care of you, consider this. This is America. The nation that poisoned its own people just so they would have a reason to ban alcohol. Thank you for watching this video. Please share it with friends and family. Until next time,